The rain tasted of ash. Amelia traced a finger across the condensation on the diner window, watching the neon sign of Evans Heat smear into a blurry halo of red and blue. Outside, the Ohio countryside was a monochrome smear of grey. The fields flattened beneath the relentless downpour. It was November, 1947, and the chill had seeped into everything, even the lukewarm coffee Evelyn served. "Another one, dear." Evelyn's voice, raspy from years of cigarette smoke, cut through Amelia's melancholy. Amelia nodded, pushing a stray curl behind her ear. "Please." She hadn't slept properly in days. The letters had started a week ago. Anonymous, typed on a vintage Underwood, filled with cryptic warnings and phrases that prickled her skin with unease. Asterisk, the soil remembers. Asterisk, asterisk, the roots run deep. Asterisk, asterisk, beware the miller's bloom. Asterisk, her husband Thomas, above researching unusual fungal growths in the region, had dismissed them as crank mail. But Amelia felt the chilling certainty that there was something more, something connected to Thomas's current obsession, a rare, phosphorescent fungus he's affectionately dubbed Miller's Bloom, found only in a remote, abandoned orchard near the town of Blackwood. Thomas was due back from Blackwood any minute. He's been practically living in the orchard for the last month, convinced that Miller's Bloom held the key to understanding a previously unknown symbiotic relationship between fungi and human memory. Amelia worried. He's been increasingly withdrawn, his eyes bright with an unsettling fervor. The bell above the diner door jingled, and Amelia's heart leaped. Thomas. He stepped inside, shaking rain from his worn tweed jacket. He looked tired, his face pale and drawn, but there was a strange light in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. "How was the orchard, dear?" she asked, trying to keep the anxiety from her voice. Thomas didn't answer immediately. He stared at her, his gaze intense. "The bloom is remarkable, Amelia," he finally said, his voice hushed. "It's more than I ever imagined." He pulled a small, sealed glass jar from his pocket. Inside, a cluster of luminous, otherworldly fungi pulsed with a soft, ethereal glow. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and utterly unsettling. "I brought you back a sample," he said, holding it out to her. "You need to see this. You need to understand." Amelia hesitantly reached for the jar. As her fingers brushed against the cool glass, a wave of dizziness washed over her. A series of fragmented images flooded her mind: a dilapidated farmhouse, overgrown with vines, a dark, muddy cellar, a circle of ancient standing stones, a woman's face, contorted in terror. She gasped, pulling her hand back. What was that?" Thomas's expression was unreadable. "A glimpse, my dear. A memory. The bloom reveals things. It unlocks what has been buried." The diner door opened again, and a man in a faded sheriff's uniform entered. "Sheriff Brody." He walked over to the table, his face grim. "Mrs. Peterson," he said, his voice low. "We found Mr. Silas Miller this morning." Silas Miller was the namesake of the bloom, the original owner of the orchard. He died nearly 50 years ago, under mysterious circumstances. The official story was a farming accident, but rumors persisted of something darker, something connected to the land itself. "Found him where?" Amelia asked, a voice trembling. "In his old farmhouse," Brody replied. "He's gone, Mrs. Peterson, completely drained, like something sucked the life right out of him." A collective gasp rippled through the diner. Amelia felt a cold dread coil in her stomach. The letters, the bloom, Silas Miller, it was all connected. "I need to see the farmhouse," she said, rising to her feet. "Mrs. Peterson, I can't let you. I need to see it, Sheriff. Please." Brody sighed, his face etched with weariness. "Fine, but I'm going with you." The drive to the Miller farm was silent. The rain had intensified, blurring the already bleak landscape. When they arrived, the farmhouse stood silhouetted against the grey sky, a decaying monument to a forgotten past. The inside was worse than Amelia had imagined. Rotting wallpaper peeled from the walls. Cobwebs hung like macabre decorations. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Brody led her to the cellar. The door was ajar, revealing a dark, damp space. He shone his flashlight inside. "This is where we found him," he said, his voice echoing in the confined space. Amelia followed him down the stone steps. In the center of the cellar floor, Silas Miller lay sprawled, his face a mask of terror. He was withered, desiccated, as if every drop of life had been extracted from his body. And then Amelia saw it. Carved into the stone floor, surrounding Miller's body, was a circle of phosphorescent fungi. Miller's bloom, the same luminous glow she's seen in Thomas's jar. But this was different. The fungi here pulsed with an unnatural intensity, casting eerie shadows on the cellar walls. and as she stared at them, she felt a strange pull sense of recognition, as she couldn't explain. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, not spoken, but felt. Asterisk, the soil remembers. Asterisk, she stumbled backward, clutching her head. What's happening to me? Thomas, who had been silent, his face pale, stepped forward. The bloom is communicating with you, Amelia. It's showing you the truth. He pointed to a dark corner of the cellar. Look. Amelia followed his gaze. Etched into the stone wall, almost hidden beneath layers of grime, was a series of symbols. Ancient runes. She recognized them. They were the same symbols that appeared in the letters she's been receiving. What are those? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. They are the key, Thomas replied, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling fervor. The key to unlocking the power of the bloom. The key to remembering. He began to recite the runes, his voice rising in a hypnotic cadence. As he spoke, the cellar grew colder, the air thick with an oppressive energy. The symbols on the wall began to glow, pulsing with the same eerie light as the fungi. And then Amelia remembered. She remembered a time long ago, a time before Silas Miller, before the farmhouse, even before the orchard. She remembered the people who lived in harmony with the land, who drew their power from the earth. She remembered a ritual, a sacrifice, a pact made with a dark entity that slumbered beneath the soil. She remembered being one of them. The memories flooded her, overwhelming her senses. She saw the entity rise from the earth, a swelling vortex of darkness and power. She felt its touch, its influence, its promise of eternal life. And she realized that the bloom wasn't just a fondness. It was a conduit, a gateway to something ancient and terrible. Stop it, Thomas! She screamed, her voice raw with terror. You're unleashing something you can control. But Thomas was lost in his trance, his eyes fixed on the glowing runes. He continued to chant, his voice growing stronger, more insistent. The cellar began to shake. The earth trembled beneath their feet. The air crackled with energy. And then the entity began to rise. It emerged from the soil, the swirling mass of shadows and light. It towered over them, its form shifting and changing, defying description. The last thing Amelia saw before darkness consumed her was Thomas's triumphant smile. He's finally awakened something ancient, something hungry, and the soul remember. It always does. The rain continued to fall on the Miller farm. The diner window let Evelyn's eats steamed with condensation. The neon sign blurred into a hazy red and blue halo, and beneath the quiet Ohio countryside, something stood,